Hey everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Chrisley Kennedy, and this is the show where we bring you the day's biggest movie news with insight into what it all means. Joining me, as always, is AMC Movie News Senior Editor John Campea.
That is a mouthful, actually, the way you say it like that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hey, Chrisley.
Nice to see you. And special guest today, we had Dan Deavy from thecinnamasource.com.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Thecinnamasource.com.
Thecinnamasource.com.
My first 5 choices for co-hosts today weren't available. I asked Dan to come.
I was in the men's room anyway. I was here getting ready to see another movie. So, you know,
Away
hey,
we go.
And they put me in the middle again. Okay, guys, today we're going to get things started with this. Warner Brothers made a big splash a few months ago when it was made known that they were planning on a Justice League movie for 2015 that would feature Superman, Batman, my favorite, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Flash. Then the trouble started. They had complete script but failed to land any of the higher profile directors they were courting. Then came word that they were tossing the script and starting again. Soon after, it was revealed that WB was getting nervous about the project and was going to wait and see how the new Superman movie, Man of Steel, performed. Now there are reports coming out from WB has pretty much abandoned the 2015 date and could be looking as late as 2020 or 2021. Reports claim that Warner Brothers is considering one of two options, depending on how well Man of Steel performs at the box office. If it fails, the studio will put their focus on rebooting Batman. If it's a success, then they will instead focus on turning out 2 more films, rounding the series out to a trilogy. Either way, there seems to be no immediate plans for Justice League. John, assuming the validity of these reports, what do you think about Justice League getting the axe?
Pathetic. Pathetic. I think this is really, really sad. And it just once again shows us that an excellent studio like Warner Brothers, which is an excellent studio, they just fumbled everything when it comes to their DC properties. And it's, look, we're going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. We got a plan. No, we don't have a plan. And look, there are these 2 standing excuses that we hear for there not being a Justice League before they do their individual films. One is, oh, we don't, and I covered this in yesterday's show, but I'll say it again. Oh, they're rushing it. If they do a 2015 Justice League, they're rushing it. So maybe it's a good idea that they're not rushing it. 2.5 years is not rushing it at all. Look, I want to remind you guys of something. Joss Whedon, when I sat down and talked to him about this particular movie he was doing, Cabin in the Woods, he mentioned, I went to a hotel one weekend with my co-writer, and we wrote the script for Cabin in the Woods in a weekend. Mm-hmm. Done. They just started not so long ago shooting Thor. That comes out at the end of this year. 2.5 years is not rushing anything. And as John Schnepp pointed out, there's this other little film coming out in 2015 that they haven't started shooting yet called Star Wars Episode 7. So this whole notion that 2015 is rushing it is garbage. You simply don't know what you're talking about if you bring that up. But here's the other objection that I hear from a lot of people. They say, well, you can't do a Justice League movie first. First, you have to do Wonder Woman. First, you have to do another Green Lantern. First, you have to do Flash, just like Marvel did it. My answer to that has been, no, you don't. I love the way Marvel did it, but I think it would be great if DC and Warner Brothers did it the opposite for themselves. Launch these smaller known characters in a Justice League movie. And look, lest you forget, yes, Avengers was a huge multi-billion-dollar movie. It made domestically $630 million. But guess what? Thor made about $180 million. Captain America made about $170 million. The last Hulk film made about $130 million. That means almost 2 out of every 3 people that went to go see the Avengers hadn't seen Thor, hadn't seen Captain America, hadn't seen the last Hulk, and yet they were able to get through Avengers just fine, just like people would have been able to get through a Justice League movie just fine. I wish they'd just come up with a plan, get some smart people involved, stick with the plan, have some confidence in your properties, and move forward with it. So this news drives me crazy, absolutely crazy. Dan, what about you?
It's a shame you don't really care about this topic.
I know, no passion.
It really is. I mean, you should really care more about your work. This is ridiculous. This really is. I mean, you would think that Marvel did the hard part. Marvel proved the formula. Marvel proved with the Avengers that this type of movie can be hugely successful. So you'd assume the guy to come next, which would be Warner Brothers with DC Heroes, the road has been mapped for you. Like, just do what they did and you will have a similar success. So all of this trepidation over it, and growing up, I was a DC kid. I wasn't a Marvel kid. So the idea that, you know, The Flash and Green Lantern and Wonder Woman, all these people together wouldn't be something people want to see. It's like, are you kidding me? Even if the script is terrible, even if they cast the wrong people, it is still going to make buttloads of money. It just will, because that's how popular these characters are. So I think it has to be a bean counter who is saying, oh, it's too much of a risk. We don't want to risk this amount of money. When you think about how much of a risk...
Because they did take a hit with Green Lantern. They did take a hit with Green Lantern.
They did.
You can see where it's coming from.
But again, a standalone film. And to your point, the standalone films don't do as well as the group film does. So, you know, I think it's someone who doesn't want to take the risk that Marvel took, which, look, Marvel sat down and said, all right, we're going to spend all this money to do all of these films, and the Avengers will be in there eventually. They took a huge risk by doing that, and it paid off hugely. Someone at Warner Brothers doesn't have the guts to do the same thing. That's why I think it's this continual back and forth. And it's stupid, because the fans will be there, the audience will be there, and you will make money. So just make the movie.
Agreed.
Put the fear away.
Yes.
All right. As everyone knows by now, Star Wars Episode 7 is coming in 2015 and is being directed by lost creator and director of the new Star Trek movies, J.J. Abrams. Disney is also planning on releasing standalone Star Wars movies outside of Episodes 7, 8, and 9, which we've speculated a lot about here on the show. Now, filmmaker and fan favorite Kevin Smith waded into the conversation by making this statement. Every old school fan will line up to see a Yoda origin story, or to see David Boreanaz as a young Han Solo, winning the Millennium Falcon from David Glover's baby-faced Lando Calrissian. Yes, I'm calling it here. Dan, obviously we're talking in theoreticals, but what do you think of Smith's suggestion of David Boreanaz as a younger Han Solo?
I think Kevin Smith is a visionary. Can I just say that? I think a man who has a TV show called Comic Book Men knows what he's talking about when he says these things. And before I heard him say that, I didn't have anyone in my head who could be a young Han Solo, who could be Lando, it wasn't clicking for me. As soon as I heard those names and heard that it came from Kevin Smith, genius. I think I would absolutely see that movie. And also, just real quick, I want to say about our pal J.J. Abrams. I think he's the perfect choice to direct Star Wars movies, because when he directed Star Trek, he made it look like Star Wars. So now that you're actually doing Star Wars, it'll be aces. Just saying.
I'm a little bit torn on this, actually. I love David Boreanaz. I really do. I'm one of these guys. I brought it up a little before we start shooting. I'll say it again here. Angel was in every way far superior to Buffy. It was just a better show by far.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know, so send in the hate mail. Bring it. I don't care. But I love the dude. I think he's been great in everything I've seen him in. I've even watched a bunch of his show, Bones. I mean, I'm not really familiar with it too much, but just because he's there, I've watched it. But here's a big problem with David Boreanaz playing a younger Han Solo. When Harrison Ford played Han Solo in the original Star Wars in 1977, Harrison Ford was 35 years old. David Boreanaz right now is 43. He's already 8 years older than Harrison Ford was when he first shot Star Wars. And now we're talking about a younger Han Solo. How do you do a younger Han Solo with a guy who's already 8 years older than the first time we saw Han Solo? So on that basis alone, because I like it in every other aspect, I can totally see David Boreanaz as a Han Solo if you're doing a reboot. But a younger Han Solo, he'll be 44, 45 by the time they start shooting it. I can't buy him as a younger Han Solo. So for that reason, I just can't get into it. But listen, folks, we've come to the part of the show now called Buy or Sell. Basically what happens here is that Chris Lee is going to read off some of the other big movie news items in the world today. And Dan and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So Chris Lee, what do we got?
It was announced last year that Pixar Studios would be producing a sequel to their hit film Finding Nemo. Yesterday came word that Albert Brooks is expected to return to voice Marlin. Andrew Stanton is returning to direct the Disney Pixar film and is co-writing the script with Victoria Strauss. Plot details are currently unavailable, but it was previously reported that Ellen DeGeneres is planning to return in the role of Dory. John, buy or sell Finding Nemo 2 with Brooks and DeGeneres returning.
I actually think I'm gonna buy this. I think Albert Brooks is one of the underappreciated treasures of Hollywood. This guy is amazing. I'm not really big on Pixar doing sequels per se. I want to see more of their original stuff. But if Andrew Stanton's back, you get the original voice cast back. And let's face it, Finding Nemo was delightful, so I buy it.
Buy it, no question. Buy it and then buy it again. I mean, Finding Nemo is one of those films that your kids or your nieces and nephews make you watch over and over again, and you don't want to stab yourself in the eye with a pencil. So to do that again, awesome. I'm in, definitely.
Okay, Downton Abbey star Dan Stevens is said to be in talks of the role in the upcoming thriller A Walk Among the Tombstones, alongside Liam Neeson. The synopsis for the film reads like this. Formerly a cop with the NYPD, now an unlicensed private eye and a recovering alcoholic haunted by past mistakes, Neeson stars as Matt Scudder, who is hired to find the kidnapped wife of a drug dealer. He operates just outside the law, where the police don't go track down the kidnappers, who he discovers have been involved in multiple kidnappings and brutal murders. Dan, buy or sell Dan Stevens' ability to make a Hollywood film career out of his Downton Abbey success?
I heard the words Liam Neeson, cop, and operates outside of the law. I will buy that. Thank you.
I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell this, and unfortunately, here's the reality of the situation. Big TV stars, unless your name is Tom Hanks or George Clooney, for every one of those guys, TV stars that make the transition to movies, there are 100 David Schwimmers, Lisa Kudrows, Matt LeBlancs, the whole cast of Friends, Kevin Sorbo from Hercules, which was the biggest show in the world. David Hasselhoff from Baywatch, which was also the biggest show in the world. Big TV stars traditionally have a very, very, very difficult time transitioning to movie success. I mean, out of the Friends cast, what do you got? Jennifer Aniston, who's never had a big movie and never had real big success. She's just got a lot of roles, but that's about it. So for that reason alone, even though I think he's a very talented dude, I'm going to sell it.
Okay, the upcoming X-Men film, X-Men Days of Future Past director Bryan Singer, who also directed the first 2 X-Men movies, was asked recently if one of his X-Men 2 characters, Nightcrawler, played by Alan Cumming, could return for the new film. Singer stated, "Sometimes you don't want to say yes or no to something that may not be a yes or no, or anything. I haven't decided yet on a few things. I'm still, there are certain aspects of the script I'm still toying with." John, buy or sell the idea of Nightcrawler in Days of Future Past? I'm
going to sell this. Don't get me wrong, I love Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler in X-Men 2, I really do. But at this point in the game, just adding another character carries with it a lot of consequences, because Nightcrawler is a very visual effects heavy character. There's a lot of different things you have to work around. There's already a whole bunch of characters in this movie that they're cramming in. So for that reason, I sell it.
I buy it because the things that made X-Men 2 so much better than X-Men 3 were the director and a lot of the cast members. And I think bringing back Bryan as the director is going to return the heart and soul into the X-Men, as was proven with X-Men First Class. And Alan Cumming coming back on board, I think that's another really talented actor playing a really great character, directed by a fantastic guy. So I buy it.
All right, there are reports that Oscar-winning filmmaker Martin Scorsese will executive produce Hong Kong director Andrew Lau's next film called Revenge of the Green Dragons. Scorsese directed the English-language remake of Lau's Asian crime thriller hit Internal Affairs and ended up winning his first and only Oscar for the movie under its new title, The Departed. The story of Revenge of the Green Dragons follows 2 immigrant Chinese siblings and their involvement within the New York-based Green Dragons gang and how that affects their relationship. Dan, buy or sell a collaboration between Scorsese and Lau?
I'm going to sell. I know that's kind of crazy. The one thing I decide to sell is Martin Scorsese. But I just, when it comes to these remakes from foreign films, I found it hit or miss, and that's just a personal thing. Like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I was not a fan of. The Departed, obviously. Yeah, I know. Dun, dun, dun. Didn't like it at all. And The Departed I thought was great. I don't think it was the film he should have won his Oscar for, but yeah, that collaboration just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
The Departed was better than good or great. The Departed was a masterpiece, and he getting his Oscar for that is great. And Infernal Affairs, the film it was based on, is my all-time favorite cop movie. And The Departed is just one of the greatest counter arguments to any, argument that, oh, remakes are never good. Yeah, The Departed, so shut up. So basically, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this hard. I think these two guys actually working together now is going to be brilliant. I love the sound of the story. So absolutely, I'm going to buy it. Now, that being said, it is time for our segment, our mailbag segment, brought back by your popular demand. Every day, we take 1 or 2 questions from the mailbag, which, by the way, you can write to us your questions at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Once again, that's amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And every day, we pick a couple. So, Chris Lee's got a couple of your questions out. So, Chris Lee, what do we got?
Ezekiel J writes in, hey guys, what's up? Hi, Ezekiel. While watching your show, I realized that Hollywood, talking about all distributors, have been doing a lot of remakes, sequels, prequels, and spin-offs. Do you think this is a sign that Hollywood is running out of new ideas for films? Or do you think this is just some phase that they are going through?
I've brought this up before. I'm going to keep harping on this every day if I can. First of all, Ezekiel, thank you so much for the question. I want to reach through my computer screen and grab people by the throat when I hear, oh, Hollywood doesn't have any original ideas anymore. There's no creativity left in Hollywood. Really? Really? This year alone, there's going to be between 500 and 700 full-length feature films produced in this town. Over 200 of them are going to be wide-release, full nationwide theatrical, some of them smaller. Out of that number, maybe 5% are going to be sequels or reboots. Maybe 5%. And that might be a huge number. So look, the idea that there's no creativity left, there's so many sequels. No, there's not. There's probably actually a smaller percentage now of the overall number of films being produced that are sequels, reboots, whatever, than there were 10 years ago. Now, granted, there are more sequels and reboots now, but 10 years ago, there was also about half the amount of films being produced, maybe less. So, no, I completely reject this notion that there's no creativity left in Hollywood. They're all sequels and reboots. No, that's just think about it for a second. It's just not true. Dan, your perspective.
Ezekiel, you and I, same page. Because, yes, there are tons of films being produced and there are tons of films being made. And, I don't know the exact statistics, but I'll trust John on that 5%. But the question is, how many of those films were shot for $10 and will be visible on one screen in an art house theater somewhere in the country, and how many films are going out nationwide? And the films that have the money behind them that are going out nationwide, there are a lot of sequels, reboots, like the same story told all over again. It happens a lot. I mean, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but last year, just looking at how many sequels were out, there are so many of them, and they're the films that have the real financial backing. So they're the ones that it seems like. That's why if you don't go to your local art house theaters, if you don't seek them out, you will think, like Ezekiel thinks, that everything is is sequels and reboots. You have to search out for that original content. So I do think there is creativity in Hollywood, but I don't think the people who have the money to support it have the guts to do it, because unless there's brand recognition, they don't want to take a risk.
Dan, you ignorant slut.
I love being in the middle.
What your argument completely ignores is the idea that the argument is not against the movies that the studios are making. Your argument is targeted at the movies we are going to see. Yes, the bigger blockbusters tend to be sequels, the material that the audience goers are already familiar with, but that makes sense. And those are the movies that most audience members are going to see. But even in light of all that, the studios are still producing all these films. Alternate vision, let's face it, these comic book franchises, sequels, things like that have to be bigger and better. These are the films that generally require the bigger budgets and things like that. But I don't think just because, out of the top 10 movies, grossing movies of the year, 8 of them were sequels, well, that's a reflection of what we as audience members are choosing to go to see, as opposed to what, that studios aren't producing original content. Because like I said, 90 to 95% of the content being produced is original content.
Okay, but if people are, quote unquote, choosing to see see them because it's the only option that's at their multiplex. They're not really choosing to see those films. They're looking at it and they're saying, okay, there are 10 screens, there are 8 sequels, and 2 other movies that are romantic comedies with some new name, so I'll go see that, because they don't go out of their way to find those art house theaters that have something new and original and different. And on your point about budgets, I would love to find a filmmaker who says, I don't need any more money. I can tell my story with just $100. Like, these big blockbusters need all of that money, because so much of it is just pure spectacle. That's what all that extra money is for. If you took a young, fresh filmmaker who had a great idea and a limited budget, he makes his film and then it goes out to a few art house theaters. If he had part of the budget that these sequels have, he could do it big. It could end up in multiplexes across the country and people could see something original.
About 200, now we're not talking about art house films, about 200 full, wide, national release films are going to come out this year. We are at a movie theater right now, the AMC Burbank 16, with 16 theaters. Ain't 8 of the theaters taken up with sequels right now. 5%. You keep making up these numbers that you're pulling out of your Calvin Klein underwear and saying, look at this.
First of all, how do you know what underwear I'm wearing? You're absolutely right, but how do you know?
I don't want to go into those details right now, but it's complete fiction. Anyway, what's next?
Not fiction.
We're going to get
creative, though, which is something that's lacking in this town. Go on.
We're going to get to Donnie Anderson. Donnie writes in, I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes and Robert Downey Jr. He's one of my favorite actors. Now that there is a Sherlock Holmes 3, are you looking forward to the movie like I am? And who would you want the villain to be in the next film?
Sherlock Holmes, what number was that? 3?
3.
6? 7? 12? 14? Oh,
3.
Okay.
Such a good movie.
It's a sequel.
Yeah, it's a sequel, and because we're familiar with the previous works, that's why we're talking about it, and that's why there's interest in it. The 3 is coming. But here's what we understand. They did hire a screenwriter who came on board in 2011. Now, he produced a rough draft for the script, but Robert Downey Jr. insists, and hey, if you've got his kind of gravitas, I'm not going to hold this against him, that he has input into the scripts for the movies that he's going to do, and he's busy with Iron Man 3. What the producer of the film has said is that they're just waiting on Robert Downey Jr. to finish all of his commitments with Iron Man 3 to then go back and consult on the script, and then they're going to finish it up. So really, at this point, it's not a matter of if there's going to be a Sherlock Holmes 3. It's just a matter of when. It is coming. As far as who I want the villain to be, I think you got to bring Moriarty back. Moriarty is the quintessential Sherlock Holmes villain. And you just introduced him really in the last film. I think you use him for 2 or 3 films. That's just my personal preference. Dan, what do you think?
I saw the first Sherlock Holmes and I saw it very excited, thinking that, oh, fantastic, it's going to be a really smart movie, and it's going to leave clues, and the audience is going to be on the edge of their seat, and we're going to try to figure this out with him and solve the mystery. And there was kung fu. There was lots of kung fu, and there was lots of explosions, and that was all that movie was to me. So I did not enjoy it. I skipped the sequel, and whoever is in the third one, I say God bless. You're going to make a lot of money because it's another sequel. It's the third one. It's Robert Downey Jr., who I love, who I think is great. He's great in Iron Man, Avengers, all that stuff. I think he's fantastic. But yeah, it's just that's not my cup of tea. It's just not for me.
All right, folks. Well, that will do it for us. We've run out of time. But listen, while I got you, before you do anything else, stop what you're doing and click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, our editorials, and of course, our daily AMC movie talk show. So just click that button. And listen, if you want an audio-only edition of this particular show, check in the description below, and you can find links to our iTunes and Stitcher Radio, so you can listen to us on your way to work or at work. Just don't let anybody else notice you. Listen, follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And once again, click that subscribe button. And what are you doing tonight? Going out to a movie. Going over to amctheaters.com for all your theater and showtime information and all of your movie ticket needs. I want to thank our host, as always, Miss Crystal Lee Kennedy.
Thank you for having me.
Our very special guest from thecinemassource.com, Mr. Dan Devey. Dan, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir.
And thank you. Listen, guys, once again, the most important part of the show is not what we have to say up here. That's irrelevant. The important thing is, what do you have to say? Jump down into the comment section below and leave us your thoughts on any or all the topics we've discussed today. And don't forget, you can email us your questions at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Thanks again for joining us. My name is John Campion. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.